as an RCUH employee, and for about 10 years I did a lot of research and extension and community outreach. And I actually just became tenure track 5 years ago, which coincided with a lot of other interesting things like the Great Recession. We're talking about contingent instructional people right now, but the other group I'm really concerned about, and again because I rely on these people so heavily as RCUH employees, as well as just the entity of RCUH. I'm extremely concerned that over the last 5 years, but maybe even longer than that, we've seen a lot of efforts to encroach on the role of RCUH and I think undermine it to some degree. I'm also concerned about the lack of protection for RCUH employees. Oh, there's the Research Corporation of the University of Hawaii. So anytime you apply for a grant or hire grant-funded people, you're going to work with RCUH. And I think there is a justified reason for creating RCUH many years ago. I think those reasons still exist. And what I'm coming to is there's some things going on this campus that I believe constitute a change in working conditions related to RCUH. I was a little bit surprised, I guess, when we started seeing UPA contest the non-smoking ban at Manoa. I mean, and that was educational for me because I understood finally some of what the role is of UPA in terms of being, I guess, the sole agent for negotiating these working conditions, if I understand this right. Because I've read the contract many, many times since I became tenure track. I still don't understand how it applies fully.
I'm glad you read.
Well, no, I've literally poured through it many times because I wanted to understand what I was getting into. But it's not always clear how it applies. But I would put out there that we need to really look closely at RCUH employees, but also the services, protect those. But I think we also need to be looking at other changes in working conditions that, to me, are much more egregious than the non-smoking ban at Manoa. And I would hope that UPA would become increasingly more active in following up on some of these changes in working conditions that I think are very serious.
So I do this then. Well, there are two issues. One is RCUH. One is the smoking issue policy. Quickly on the smoking policy. President Lasner and I are both befuddled by why the smoking policy has risen to the level that it has. And underlying it has nothing to do with smoking. It has everything to do with the policies of the University of Hawaii and where they exist. There is a BOR policy currently on smoking that applies to the campuses. The campuses have not been delegated the authority to have their own smoking policy. There should be one policy on all campuses. There is no dispute between President Lasner and I that it is a working condition. And we are, even though we had to file that complaint with the Labor Board because Manoa tried to create their own policy, we have reached a settlement with President Lasner on how we're going to address the smoking policy. And it'll apply to all the campuses. So that was a figment of a circumstance at Manoa, again, that was related more to the authority to bargain than it was to anything else. And certainly not smoking. To go to RCUH, the RCUH, I was on the board of directors of RCUH in the, let's see, that would have been the late 90s and the early 2000s. The RCUH is a very unique corporation, and there has been a constant battle between RCUH and the located at Manoa, but System Research Service Office. When I was on the board of RCUH, a proposal was made by RCUH to take over all of those functions for the university. And the university, admitted the president at that time, rejected it, Ken Mortimer. And they shifted the emphasis back to their own internal handling of the functions. As far as I'm concerned, it didn't work out well. But in the meantime, the amount of RCUH employment, the number of positions run through RCUH since that time has more than doubled. The positions, but not the support for the research function. By law, the employees of RCUH cannot be represented by bargaining unit 7 or any of the other public sector bargaining units. It's exempted from Chapter 89. We cannot negotiate, no union in this state can negotiate on behalf of RCUH employees. What, again, we are working with is our concern that RCUH is not misused. We appreciate how well it does function. In fact, it'd be grand if they could be more involved in the research side. But again, we have absolutely no standing to change the working conditions of RCUH employees, even as they function. Here's a good analogy. I noticed the construction going on here. All those construction trucks and all the people associated with it who come on this campus, they are functionally a part of the employment group that is working for Hilo right now, but none of them have status as Hilo employees. Even as they build this, they work for another private entity that controls their working conditions, what they get paid. They're responsible for complying with federal and state laws and the rest. And that's the difficulty. We would like to, as much as we can, help integrate RCUH into the university function without taking advantage of those people. There are a number, by the way, of RCUH employees who have been RCUH employees for 20 and 25 years. The biggest impact is not faculty, however. The biggest impact is bargaining unit 8, which are the APTs, the Administrative Professional Technicals. That's where the largest number of RCUH employees would have fallen if they were rolled over into our system. I don't know if that explains it. Other comments?
And Maria, you mentioned other working conditions, and could you be specific about what those working conditions are that have changed? Because I think that gets more to the heart of what we're here to talk about.
Okay, well, first I want to say I don't disagree with the UPA stance on the Manoa situation. What it brought out to me was it clarified some of the contract conditions, so it was educational for me. And I think UPA took the correct stance. What I'm saying is it was surprising to me that UPA came out so strong on this one case where there seemed to be a lot of other workplace conditions that were more important, in my view, than whether Manoa smokes or not, doesn't smoke. Okay, so for example, to me, the fate of RCUH is part of my guess, effective working condition. So even if they can't be unionized, we need to protect the employees and their functions, because without them, as a researcher, an extension agent, or whatever I'm doing, I cannot exist. In fact, because every time RCUH takes a hit, I take a hit. So to me, that's a change in working conditions. Right now, there's an effort on this campus, in fact, it's not an effort, it's a done deal, that our pre-awards people at RCUH are going to be eliminated and ORS is going to take that over. And I don't see that as beneficial to my role as being able to bring in money, do my community outreach or any of those kind of things. And that was a unilateral decision, no faculty consultation, and again, I think it represents a change in working conditions among some of the other things that have gone on. Implementation of Koali and my grants, I think, also was a change in working condition. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe I didn't follow it closely, but I didn't see UPA standing up to take a stance on that, even though I think most faculty were fairly adverse to the whole thing, and it caused us a lot of workplace stress, and it impaired our efficiency and ability to function. So I guess I'd like to know what UPA's stance is and what it constitutes a workplace change, and what are you guys going to do to help us out with some of these adverse conditions?
Again, you have to understand that even though we might contest it, we don't have standing to negotiate it. When it comes to the smoking policy, we did. And the smoking policy was just, at Manoa, one aspect that was tagged along with something that infects you a whole lot more, which is the 5-year review process, which is much more serious in terms of work conditions. We consider anything, again, that affects the people who we represent, which means you have to be 50% or more employed by the University of Hawaii, and it excludes RCUH. We have advocated for years, as I said, just about finished saying, on on the inadequacy of ORS. I have spoken to actually the Board of Regents about it, but we as an organization do not have any legal standing to press that before any labor board or any other judicial spot like we would the smoking zone. But don't confuse that with not appreciating the problem and trying to get the university to change. ORS is a mess. David Duffy, our president who's in Alaska right now, he as an individual brings in more external money than any other UH faculty member. He's in botany. He has a lot of RCUH employees that are under his various grants. He works closely with them, and he knows the shortcomings of ORS. Believe me, I mean, if there was anything first on the plate of David, it would be that. Yeah. But you understand, we don't have standing. Well, what we've done, go to the Board of Regents, all right? Try to convince them to change internally the policies, organize the faculty as far as that's concerned. But we can't bargain it, technically bargain it into the Unit 7 contract.
And even on issues where we do have a right to consult, we can consult. That doesn't mean they have to follow what we recommend. Well, we've certainly had this conversation yesterday at Manoa that, you know, we feel like there are two voices of the faculty, and UPA is one voice, and we have a certain area and legal force behind the area that we have sort of range over. The faculty senates are another voice. I think we need to find a way to work more cooperatively with each other and share information and issues more clearly and cleanly and frequently, but they're two completely different voices, and Bob probably has something to say about that since he sits on the Manoa